goat is bleeding, the tiger has come, and the hunter is sitting on top. So now Bhagavan asks B.V. Narasimha Swami, do you think the actions and happiness of all the three are the same? The event is the same. The event, what? There is only one event. There is a tree on top of which hunter is there. There is a tree to which the goat is tied. There is a tiger which has come. Then B.V. Narasimha Swami says, no, no, no. The happiness of all the three are different. There is no happiness for the goat, whether it knows it or not. There is really no happiness for the goat at any time. The happiness of the tiger, who has won a little bit of money in this world or whatever, with fighting and with knowledge or whatever, and has some balance in bank, the happiness of the tiger is short-lived. Because the hunter is going to trap it. The hunter is going to shoot it in no time. The moment it puts its fangs into the, or claws or whatever into the goat, the hunter is going to shoot from top. So the happiness of the goat is not at all there. The happiness of the tiger, the victors in this game, is fleeting. And the happiness of the hunter, who knew all this, seems to be abiding in this story right from beginning, because he is aware of what all is going to transpire. So there is difference. So now Bhagavan says, do you agree that the actions and the happiness in life depends on who you are? Now let us say it is not very clear with this. Let us take another example of a great gentleman called Trachtenberg. I have appreciated him because I used to teach Vedic mathematics and shortcuts in mathematics as part of the curriculum for competitive exam passing people. I had an institute for that. Now this Trachtenberg, his life is very interesting. It throws a beautiful light on how important it is to know who we are. Now, Trachtenberg was a Jew. You know the Jews were, he was one of the Jews who were put in concentration camp by Hitler. So the food provided was soup with only water, and for every 1,000 liters there will be one aloo or something like that. So unhealthy, and they used to be made to lift very heavy stones. That's how his biography is written. Practically the same miserable situation is available to all the other people there. That is exactly the situation to him. He is not made supervisor or anything. But despite that, he starts thinking, how can I be of use to the world? You imagine his body is being put to all kinds of pains. But his mind is saying, I have so much knowledge about education, how can I be of use to this world? So in all his free time, he is writing mathematics and schooling. He is writing, and he has come to the same Vedic mathematics shortcuts on his own. On his own he has arrived at the same shortcuts. Whom to praise I don't know. Whether the Vedic scholars for having found out thousands of years ago, or Trachtenberg for having found out on his own in dire circumstances. But the same situation, who Trachtenberg is, now still there are Trachtenberg schools in Sweden, I suppose. There are schools, the children are learning by his method. So it becomes very clear, isn't it, that who we are is, we used to have this discussion at home, that some people are, my better half used to say there is a poem, I don't know which poem, that the poem is about a constantly happy person and a constantly sorrowful person. The personality itself is whatever is offered, that person sees the positive. The other person, whatever is offered, this is what our Professor Natarajan has also mentioned in the beginning, that there will be some people who will find happiness wherever they are put. So the personal, the whom you are, this is what we are going to see in our ballet also to come up, though I am revealing an official secret, that the personality, whom we are, what is the nature of ours, even in a relative term. In Bhagavan in this sentence is not referring to the relative personality. He is saying that The aspirant has to discover his own real nature. When we discover our real nature, the game is over. Even relatively we understand if Trachtenberg can be happy there. There are many situations in life you will find in Mahatma Gandhi's life also that he has taken decisions where all the people around him are for something else. But he would have taken it very, very easily and lightly and he would have gone ahead. There will be a decision to be taken about whether we should go ahead with the non-cooperation in 1942 when World War is. All the great ones who are fighting for Indian liberation are with him. They are all for increasing the non-cooperation. Everybody. But Gandhiji says, this is a time when the world is suffering as a common entity and Britons are fighting for the world, for the rest of the world. Let us not put pressure on them now. Let the world war be over, then we will go for... No, this he says, amidst what, there is a small girl waiting for him. Mahatma, the goat has broken his feet, we should bandage it. Then Gandhiji says, you wait for 2 minutes, I will come and join you. See, he is so sure, he's in his humility. See, the humility is also a strength. The surrender to God is also having a dharma. We will see that later. And it's not weakness, it is definitely not weakness. It has a dharma of its own, it has a quality of its own. And Gandhiji says, just wait for 2 minutes, I will come and join you. And he turns to these people and says, see, this is not the time to pressurize them. Such a decision is able to tell and is able to go ahead. So, is it not very important to know who we are? Isn't it? So, that's the thing that's coming through. Now, how to do this? What is the dharma or what is the method of doing self-enquiry? So, first, we have seen that it is the paramount duty. What is the method? It is answered in the next question itself because Devrata asks, what in brief is the means to know one's real nature? What is the effort that can bring about the sublime inner vision? How to do this? And it has been covered beautifully by the professor that we are not the sensory body, we are not the mind also. So Bhagavan says here, strenuously withdrawing all thoughts from sense objects, one should remain fixed in steady, non-objective enquiry. Strenuously withdrawing all thoughts, all attention outward from sense objects, one should remain steady in a fixed, non-objective self-attention. Now, if we are in self-attention, how will things of the world go on? That will be the next question, isn't it? Now, there are two suggestions by Bhagavan. One is that the Ishvara, who is present within everyone, is running the entire cosmos according to the prarabdha of each individual. Therefore, don't worry. Now, you can try to practice this for the rest of the session. What you can do is pay less attention to your ears, but you can try to pay attention to yourself. See, the rest of the exchange from my side can be made as self-attention practice for you. It is called as Drishya Anuvida Samadhi. Though I may be speaking and different words may be coming to you, don't strain your ears. Let the jiva not go out through the ears much. Let the jiva be focused on who I am. Okay? Or suppose you are used to only dhyana. Suppose you are used to chanting the name of God in the mind. You can do that. Pay less attention to the ear. What is to be received through the ear will be received by Ishvara's grace. Don't worry. I am not going to say something much more moving than your self-attention, than your dhyana. Dhyana is more paramartha than what is going to be coming through Shravana. That is what Venkatesh ji has pointed out. So the rest of the few minutes that we are going to spend, you can attempt this. That what will happen to the world? Will my listening be corrupted? I am sure you are going to be surprised. So if you are used to dhyanam, do the dhyanam of your deity. If you are used to self-attention, now pay less attention to the ears I will also be saved in the process. Now you can pay attention to the self, to the source of the mind. Now here comes Kapali Shastri on our behalf and says, you are saying that you attend to the self. But my experience is that I am the body. You are saying you pay attention to the self. The self has no limits. The Sat was described in detail by the professor that the Sat is Anadi, it is Ananta, it is Avyaya, it is Akshara. It is having no limits. But my experience is I am caught up somewhere, I am trapped somewhere, everybody is pressurizing me, some ad is pulling me, whether to buy the product or not, I seem to be pulled and pushed from all sides. Now, I don't realize. Then Bhagavan says, presently you are feeling that you are the body, or the consciousness has limited itself to the body. That is called as ego self. Bhagavan calls it as ego self. Now, next question Kapali Shastri asks is, now are you asking me to find out what is this ego self? What use is it knowing what is this ego? Then Bhagavan says the beautiful dharma of self-enquiry. This is the dharma of self-enquiry. What self-enquiry does to one. Bhagavan says, of course the body is inert, it is unconscious, and the self is full of consciousness. Between these two, a false entity has arisen, partaking in both the qualities, both the dharmas. For the body, there is no consciousness. Inertness is its dharma. For the self, consciousness is its dharma. Absolute pure consciousness is its dharma. But in between these two, there is a self, the ego, which says, I am the body, and partakes in the dharma of the body, and partakes in the dharma of the self. I am caught up like this. What to do, Bhagavan? Then Bhagavan says, I am coming to your rescue. When you are self-attentive, as I am asking you to be now, when the ego is self-attentive, self-awareness is the nature of Paramatman. Self-awareness is the nature of the self. So when it tries to be self-attentive instead of object-attentive, the ego partakes lesser and lesser in the inert body and partakes more and more and more and more in the pure consciousness. What happens what is the dharma? What does self-enquiry do? Is it completely useless to the day-to-day dweller today? Absolutely not. Bhagavan is saying, what does self-enquiry do for us? It turns us away from the darkness of attachment to the inert body and makes us partake more and more in the absolute pure consciousness of our source. All good that ever happened to anybody in any part of creation happened because the self is there, because the light of self is there. When you turn to the light of the self, what good would have happened with a deliberate effort happens without any deliberateness. If any good can happen by any other sadhana, it must, and in Kannada and in Tamil we say, must and should. It must and should happen with self-enquiry. If by any deliberate sadhana, any good should come upon you, 120% it must and should come by self-enquiry, because you are going towards the source of that which is the adhara for everything. You are going towards the source of that liberated India. You are going towards the source of that created India. You are going towards the source of that creates, maintains, and sees through the complete existence of the entire creation. Will it not do good for in your small little life? Absolutely it will. So do self-enquiry, Bhagavan says. That's what he says to F.H. Humphreys. Begin by sitting for 15 minutes in turning away from all the phenomena and also the act of seeing the phenomena or act of listening to a speaker, turn away. And pay attention only to the one who is listening, to the one who is seeing the phenomena. Initially it will be very, very difficult. Initially, though I have said it will be difficult for you to pay attention to who is listening. Initially, it will be very, very difficult. Initially, though I have said, it will be difficult for you to pay attention to who is listening. Yaru idannu kelta idare? Who is the listener? To pay attention, it will be very difficult. But with practice, Bhagavan says, it will be possible. And though it takes years for a master of self-attention to be made, within a few months, within a few short months, you will see the effects of self-inquiry, he says. This is a very rare statement from Bhagavan. Usually Bhagavan never says any benefits of self-inquiry. Because the moment the mind is given benefit, what will happen? The moment the mind is given some benefit, will it be attending to self-inquiry? Bantendri has the benefit. Where is the benefit? I say, you told all those benefits, where are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's why Bhagavan would never say benefits of self-inquiry. But here to Humphreys he says something very beautiful. And to Kapali Shastri also. Kapali Shastri he says in the root, you turn away from the body and objects and thought towards the self. You partake less and less and less and less of the inert matter, and you partake more and more and more in that light which is permeating everything. And he makes it even more clear to F.H. Humphreys. He says, what is the dharma of self-attention? The dharma is that you will find that you are in control of your circumstances much better than before, but always unconscious falling in place of situations. This is very beautiful statement from Bhagavan. As you do self-attention, there is an unconscious falling in place of situation. Why unconscious? Because any conscious thing takes you away from the self. But there is a witnessing. Oh, now you just see the story of my life. 93, surrounded by complete darkness. 97, meeting a beautiful friend who puts me on to what is meditation. In 2003 or 2001, I get Ramana Maharshi book from a student from RMCL. Then start self-inquiry in earnest in 2004-2005. The company, I am surrounded by people who attack my ego all the time for my benefit. Now, there is no chance for my ego to arise in RMCL because everybody is equipped. From a small child in Ramana Maharshi Center, the moment the ego rises and claims, hang madbute, yen uncle hinge heltira hang madbute anta. How do you claim that? They will use bhakti of Bhagavan and jnana of Bhagavan to put down ourselves. We play this game in Ramana Maharshi Center. Each person is authorized. When somebody points out to the ego, immediately we have to subside. No, I have not made deliberate efforts. When Akka came first to our home, we were actually in search. I was going around in Akka in search for a place somewhere in South Bangalore. I also went with Akka and team for 2-3 temples and all that. Absolutely no thought was given to me by Bhagavan that the satsang will be conducted in our meditation hall. Then I said, we are just half a kilometer from our home, why don't we all go for a cup of tea? And I took her to the second floor along with the team, and she was sitting in the place where Bhagavan is sitting now. And she remarked, why are we going here and there? This is the exact word she remarked. Why are we going here and there? This 25 by 10 hall is enough. Why don't we do Ramana Satsang here? From 2009 it's going on. For almost 8 years now. It happens not by deliberate effort. You just do self-attention. This is not story, this is real happening. The more you partake in the light, Bhagavan runs your show. It's not ordinary claim because Bhagavan's real nature is the self. He loves the one who loves Bhagavan as the self. That's why in Gita, the Gita Acharya says, I love the Jnani or the Jnanamargi also because he is Ananya Bhakta. What is this Ananya Bhakta? What is the dharma of Ananya Bhakti? The dharma of Ananya Bhakti is that to the Ananya Bhakta, there is nothing other than God. There is not a single thing other than God. There is no anya. That ananya bhakti is the same as self-attention. In self-attention is also a bhakti. It is called ananya bhakti. So there Gitacharya says, I carry the load of the ananya bhakta on my head. Nowhere else. There is a story which Akka used to say, where some scholar cuts it and writes, how can you say God is carrying the load? The scholar cuts that explanation and goes and substitutes with some other word. We are putting down God. Then Krishna himself comes to that home and changes it by saying to the mother there, Amma, your husband has given me a blow in the back. There is a huge wheel in the back of that boy. The whole story I am not going into. But the meaning is, it is true that when you seek the self in self-attention, as Bhagavan has assured us, he carries our load. Now that is the dharma of surrender too. What is the dharma of surrender? Dharma of surrender has, when we inquire, this has been our inquiry in Ramana Maharshi Center, Ramana Maharshi Research Center for the last 6-7 years. What is the dharma of surrender? It may appear trivial, but it is not. It covers the whole area of all other dharma. In the afternoon, after Parayana, we had discussion with 2 devotees. Very serious devotees. So they were saying, I am tossed about by the dharma of the family. I have to answer to so many people. And whatever I say, sometimes they take it good. And now, since I am not in such a good position, whatever I say is taken as bad. The family dharma is there, family dharma is not wrong. And don't mistake me, Bhagavan himself supports family dharma. There is an incident, I will say that because it is my duty to support that and then come, because I have also been immensely benefited by that dharma. Bhagavan says, in T.N. Venkatraman was the manager, but before he was manager in the 1940s, he was a family man, happily married. His father, Chinnaswamy, had taken sannyasa. So once in Bhagavan's presence, the manager, the to-be manager, T.N. Venkatraman sir, he is going for a Grava Pravesham out of Tiruvannamalai. The situation is, out of Tiruvannamalai, some Grava Pravesham is there, T.N. Venkatraman is going. Chinnaswamy comes and says, you have come to Bhagavan, you have come to self-enquiry. Why are you going and doing all these things? Then Bhagavan says, he is a family man. Let him do his dharma. Let him. Why do you stop him? He will come to the self in that way. Now, who are you? You are a sannyasi. Why are you interfering in his dharma? That is implied. Bhagavan doesn't say that. He is too kind. I am still a fool, so I will tell all that also. He is saying, impliedly he is saying, you are, therefore, it is my experience that my family duties also, I still remain a householder, but without any deliberateness, those duties are carried out. I don't have any dharma other than self-enquiry, but to all practical purposes, I still am a family man, a householder. All those duties are carried and done by Bhagavan. Now, therefore, self-attention, wherever you are, whatever you are playing, it does not come in the way. It only allows you to play that role without deliberateness. If you are in conflict with anybody's duty, if you feel self-enquiry, therefore I should go and stop him from his duty, then you have not understood self-enquiry. Because in self-attention, the whole cosmos is being run. Ishvara is in self-attention. Ishvara is a jnani according to Bhagavan. Ishvara doesn't have sankalpa according to Bhagavan. Ishvara dharma according to many is having sankalpa as omnipotence. In some, the dharma of Ishvara is witnessing. They say Ishvara's dharma is manassakshi. Therefore you also be manassakshi. You will become in reverse gear. You will go and identify with Ishvara. You will not be in conflict with whatever he has created. So the second dharma of Ishvara is manassakshi. So there is sakshi bhava also in Vedanta. If you take the dharma of sakshi, you indirectly go into reverse gear and abide with the Ishvara. So you just witness whatever is happening. But in Atma Jnana, Ishvara is not even having that dharma. And according to Bhagavan, Ishvara is not having that dharma. Ishvara is a pure jnani. He is only self-attentive. In his sannidhi, Bhagavan says, in the sannidhi of Ishvara, the whole cosmos rises, exists and subsides. The jnani also needs to be only that. The jnani may be a small particle in Ishvara, but he also has to partake in that dharma of Ishvara.